So when I put my corset on, I can often compress my waist about 8 inches. If you want to learn how I do that, it's called tight lacing, and I'll give you some tips coming up. Hey guys, it's Morgan with BDSM Relationships and Education. Thank you for checking out this video on tight lacing. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to turn your notifications on, and that way you can see when I post new videos. I post 3 videos per week, 2 on BDSM, and right now I'm doing 1 a week on corsets. So let's talk about tight lacing. So like I said in the intro, I can usually get a good 8-inch reduction on my waist. Some days I'm just not feeling up for it and I can only do 6, and other days I'm feeling fantastic and I can do more than 8 inches. It really depends on the corset I'm wearing and how my body is feeling that day. And part of the reason that I can do this is because I have been wearing corsets for an absolutely ridiculously long time. I have done waist training in the past. I'm not currently waist training. And I do have, a little extra to squish. So that kind of makes it a bit easier. This is like one of those areas where those of us that are a little fluffier have the advantage over the, more slim and muscular types. So to begin, I know that you guys watched my tight lacing versus waist training video. It'll be up here if you haven't. But tight lacing is when you wear a corset to reduce your waist more than 4 inches or more than 20% of your waist, your natural waist measurement. So that is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about tight lacing. To begin, I'm going to talk about a few warnings about tight lacing that you need to know. So the first thing you should know is that it can increase your blood pressure. So if you have high blood pressure naturally, this probably is not the thing for you until you can get your blood pressure under control. But it also means that you should avoid tight lacing in times when you're upset, or if you know you're going to be doing like a lot of physical activity or anything that would normally raise your blood pressure. You're going to want to avoid that tight lacing at that time. Another really important thing to remember with tight lacing is not to go too tight too fast. So you want to start off with just a modest reduction. And this is both every time you put the corset on and when you're starting to tight lace. So in the beginning, you're only going to be able to get like 2 inches, 4 inches, whatever it is that's comfortable, and you will have to work your way up to higher reductions. But every time that I put my corset on, I tighten it to where it's comfortable, and that may only be a 4-inch reduction. And I sit with it and I just kind of go about my day, and then in an hour or so, I will tighten my corset again and reduce a little further and a little further until I get to the point that I want to reduce. So it could take me 2 or 3 hours to get to that 8-inch reduction. It's not something that I just slap the corset on and pull the strings and here we go. It takes a little time to build up to it. If you have trouble breathing or if you have any kind of pain, you do need to loosen your corset immediately. Now, corsets should not interfere with your ability to breathe. As you can see, I can take a full breath. A good corset should only put pressure on your waist. It should not, look, I can stick my thumbs in here. It should not put pressure on your ribs or your hips, the exception being conical corsets that put some pressure on your lower ribs. That's fine. But here I don't have any pressure, so I should be able to breathe normally. If I can't breathe normally, then my corset is too small through the ribs and I need a new one. Again, if you have any pain, because that is one of the things that can happen, you might end up with something kind of pinched or tweaked or whatever. If you're feeling any sort of pain, you do need to loosen your corset or take it off entirely. When you are tight lacing, you cannot eat big meals. You need to be a little bird and just like pick at things here and there, because the corset where it's sitting, it is putting pressure on your stomach, and there's not going to be very much room left in your stomach because it's being squished. Now your organs will shift around. That's totally normal, and it's nothing to be alarmed about, but you can't fill your stomach and have like a huge meal while you're tight lacing. So if you are going to like Christmas dinner, don't tight lace, right? If you are going to something where you know there's going to be a lot of food, then don't tight lace. And it's the same thing. Don't eat a huge meal and then expect to get an 8-inch reduction off of your waist with your corset, because you're just going to make yourself miserable. You should also avoid, carbonated drinks or anything that kind of gives you gas. So if it's something that makes you kind of gassy, just avoid it, because anything that's sort of fizzy or builds up that pressure in your stomach or in your intestines is going to be a really, really uncomfortable experience, and you won't be able to tight lace properly. So in addition to eating like a bird and just picking here and there, you do need to watch what you're eating. So maybe you need to avoid beans or pop or beer or whatever. Just your own triggers, and you will be much happier if you just avoid all of that kind of stuff. You do need to make sure that you are properly hydrated while you are tight lacing, just because, we need to make sure that we're properly hydrated at all times, but you are putting pressure on your body. You are putting your body under stress. And if you don't have, if you are not properly hydrated, then you can suffer for it. So make sure you're drinking enough water. Just don't, chug it and, drink carbonated water or something like that, because then you're going to be miserable. So this is also where we get the whole myth about breaking bones, right? So people talk about, oh, well, her corset was so tight and she broke a rib or something like that. A properly fitted corset should not put any pressure, again, on your ribs other than those floating ribs. There may be a small amount of pressure on those, but there should not be any real pressure. When we talk about breaking a bone because we did up a corset too tightly, we're talking about the bones of the corset. And I'm reaching over here because I have a bag of bones. There we go. Here's my bag of bones. So we are talking about breaking one of the bones of the corset. And usually this is not from the time where we have these wonderful steel bones. This is from the time when people were wearing corsets that were boned with whalebone or reed or other things that are a lot more fragile. So when we talk about, broke a bone, it's the corset bones, not our body's bones. So hopefully that helps you out a little bit with your tight lacing journey. Again, there's not a whole lot to it. It's mostly put the corset on your body, tighten it up, and, retighten after a couple of hours. That's the big trick to it, really, is to retighten after a few hours once you kind of get used to the reduction you're at. But it does take some time to build up the sort of tolerance, I guess, for it. And you will need to regularly tight lace if you want to be able to get more dramatic reductions, and you may need to buy a custom fitted corset in order to do that, because if the corset doesn't fit you, it will not allow you to tight lace. So I'm lucky that I have been able to find some off the rack corsets that have a large enough hip spring, because that's where I run into problems, is through the hips, but that have a large enough hip spring to allow me to tight lace while wearing the corset. So anyways, thank you very much for checking out this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.